And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hello everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Today we're taking a look at Etherfields. This is from Awakened Realms. Awakened Realms makes some of the biggest board games on the market, both in terms of popularity. I mean, everyone loves Nemesis. Last year they had a smash hit with Tainted Grail. And now we have Etherfields here. These are big, giant Kickstarter style games. But what I try to do with each of their different games is I try to pay attention to them as little as possible so that when the game actually does come out, I look at it and say, ooh, what am I finding here? And that's what happened with Etherfields. I remember when it came out, I said, ooh, look, it looks like part of the box is missing, which in the picture looked true, in real life not necessarily. That's pretty much all I knew about it. I knew it was a big game. And I knew very little else. I kind of looked at it a little bit, kind of from a distance to some degree. So when I got it, I would be more surprised, and indeed I was. So this is a storytelling cooperative game for 1 to 4 players. You're going to be going through a series of dreams. There is an overarching story, but you don't know what that is at the beginning. You just find yourself caught up in dreams. And in these dreams, there's malevolent entities which are trying to stop you and come after you, but you are trying to go through a series of dreams. This is not a short game. At this point in time, I think I've played for 15 to 20 hours, somewhere in that time frame, and I feel like I did some math and calculated it out, and I would say that if I completely finished the game, and this is playing mostly solo. I played initially with these guys at the studio. We played together, but then I played a lot of it solo, and I would say 40 more hours or so in this game. That's a good chunk of game, and I might even be underselling it. There's just a ton of game here. So there's a lot going on, and because a lot of the game has spoilers and things, and so I can't show you all that, I'm going to show you different cards and a few things to give you an idea of how the game works. Jump to the outro if you don't want to see anything. I'm not going to really spoil anything major or even barely at all here in the explanation, but hopefully this will give you somewhat of an idea of how the game plays. This is a cooperative game, and you're going to be playing one of 4 characters. You can play 1 to 4 people together, although there is a 5th character that can be bought separately and mixed in the mix. We have the specialist, the tough guy, the free spirit, and the gambler. Each of these, you have your player board here, which is just it's more of a placeholder than anything else. More importantly, each character is going to come with a specific deck. These decks have, many of the cards in the decks are the same as other people's, but there's also cards in these decks that are very specific to your character. And as the game goes by, you're going to have the opportunity to buy from these big influence decks more cards to go in here. And if you ever go over 40 cards at the beginning of any particular session, you are going to choose the cards that go in this deck. I haven't got to that point. I just play with my entire deck. You'll notice the back of these gives you a special ability. You can actually use this ability if this is the top card, although as you add other cards to your deck, you kind of decrease your special ability power. Players are going to be moving their team piece around on this overworld map, and this map you can see can grow to 8 cards. These are just what you'll see at the beginning of the game. More will be added. And as you move around, you follow the arrows. Sometimes there's little arrows that give you shortcuts, but they usually have some sort of negative thing that will happen to you. When you go to a spot with a question mark, you'll draw a fate card. Fate cards could be good and or bad. When you go to an exclamation point, you'll draw a slumber card, which sometimes will have you fight some sort of guy in a mini type dream. Sometimes they'll give you keys, and sometimes when you're on a certain spot, you'll be able to spend keys to do a dream. As the game goes by, you'll get these cards here, and this is like a gate to a new dream. I have to catch this train. To go to this dream, I need to be in the District of Suburbia, and I need 2 keys. Once I get these 2 keys, then it will tell you how to set up that dream. This will tell you the special rules of that dream, and there's a lot going on per dream. The dreams are the main part of the game. But you go around this map, and you're going to be discovering new things, and after you successfully complete a dream, you might get some more of these, and in fact, sometimes after you go through a dream, you might be able to go back to an older dream and do it again, and different things might happen. This is the map that players will have of their main board. This is showing you actually the slumber map where you go through. Like I said, a slumber is essentially a mini dream where you'll fight a bad guy or usually have some sort of goal that you're going to be attempting. Now, when you do your main dream, you'll also, this is the tutorial dream, so don't worry, I'm not spoiling anything really here. You're going to be moving around this board. There are walls that will stop you from moving, and there are various things that can happen. These dreams can change pretty dramatically. Sometimes you'll even have little cards that go on top of the dream in weird angles. Like, for example, this one you can see goes here and something will happen. But you'll notice there's a lot of stuff printed on the board, and these are different things that you can interact with and discover and find out. And you'll notice there are different colors. We have green, yellow, and red, and this has to do with your deck of cards that you have. In a dream, players are going to have a certain number of turns. After the end of a turn, the bad guys are going to move. Each bad guy will have different things listed on them, including a movement, and this will tell you what to do. The creature will use their special effect, then they'll use their basic effect, then they're going to roll the movement die, and then you discard that card, and that's a turn. In between turns, players are going to be drawing a certain number of cards. Players will usually draw 4 cards. They have a maximum of 6 cards in their hand, and they're going to be able to take turns playing these cards. You'll go around the table playing these cards until basically everyone passes. And after everyone passes, you're either out of cards or you're done using cards, then the enemies go, if there are any. They're called entities in this game. I call them monsters, which is a much more useful term I found. And then the players go again until you either finish the dream or you fail the dream. And the goals of succeeding and failing are very clear. Now, when you play these cards, there's different ways you can play them. You'll notice in the top, there are the different colors I showed you, red, yellow, and green. Sometimes they say or. These are pretty small ones. But there's also things in the bottom that you can use. Sometimes it's a card that you're going to put underneath your board. Each player has a board, and you have progress cards. So this one says, I can place this card for 4 red. So if I spend 4 other red, I'll be able to place this card on my board, and from now on I have another special ability that costs me 3 of any type, and then I can do something with this card. Some cards, though, cost me nothing. I can play them anytime I want. The slap, any one dreamer can re-roll a roll. But usually, you're going to be usually playing your cards, at least in the beginning of the game, for these different colors that are there. Whenever you play these to take a basic action, you're also allowed to roll this die here, which can add 1, 2, or 3, and also can completely fail your roll or even cause something bad to happen. So there's some luck involved in that. You're kind of pushing your luck, trying to add to these. Yellow is often used for movement, as shown on this card here. These are your basic actions. You can spend a yellow to move a certain number of spaces on the board. When you fight creatures, usually that's what red is used for. Green is usually used for contact or exploring around there. Players also have hours. This is something that everybody has here, a track of hours, and you'll be able to spend those to look at cards or to move a certain amount of spaces. You also will be getting these shiny gems. You can discard 3 cards from your hand to gain one of these. These allow you to re-roll dice, and they also will give you other things as the game goes by. And there's other things, and I'm not gonna get too involved with everything that can go on in this game because you will discover new rules as you can. But essentially, you are interacting with your dream. So as players interact with their dreams, sometimes the things are pretty easy to do. Like this one here says, some leverage. I had to spend 2 yellow. And then I'm going to read from the Book of Secrets, number 30. Etherfields comes with a large book of secret scripts, they're called. And in here, there's 1,232 different things that you can read. You'll find whatever script you're supposed to read at any given point. So there's 30 different things will happen. It might say reveal a new card. There's a certain number of cards for each dream that you'll set aside when you play through them. Different effects will happen, both good or bad. And a lot of the story of the game, well, pretty much all the story of the game, is in these secret scripts. And so that's what players are going to be doing. They're going to be moving around, trying to avoid and or fight the entity sometimes, and discovering these scripts. But sometimes, this one here, for example, shows 2 green per player. And when that happens, you need to spend 2 green. So let's say I'm playing a 3-player game, I'll need to spend 6 green. So maybe I spend 2 on my turn, then on the next turn I spend 2, and Mary spends 2, and now we have enough to finish it. These things can be done in waves, and this is one way that the game scales for number of players. These things are more difficult if you're playing with more than 1 player, and if you're playing with 1 player, you don't even need to worry about it really. But of course, then you're by yourself and don't have anyone helping you. But all these different things, good things can happen, bad things can happen. They can open up new sections of the map. They can give you items that you'll be able to use as a group. They have really good numbers on them and great special effects. There's all sorts of things that can happen, and honestly, that's the kind of the point of the game, and I can't really spoil it for you. There's 2 main bad things that will happen to players. They're going to take damage or frustration or confusion. I just call it damage. And you don't want to take 8 of those because that will cause you to lose that particular dream, which could have negative effects on you. The other way is you're often going to have you're going to seal cards from your deck. This basically means you'll take a certain number of cards off the top of your deck and remove them from your deck. They're kind of out of that particular dream. You'll get them back later. Some cards even give special effects if you seal them and put them aside. But you have to be careful not to let your deck get too small, or because first of all, that's not very good for you. And secondly, every time you go through your deck and reshuffle, bad things happen. And thirdly, if your deck gets way too small, then your character is considered to be dead or at least out of the dream at that point also. Now that is about as much as I can show you without spoiling things. Here, this is the rule book, so you can go look at the rule book online, and this talks about slumbers and dreams and how turn order works and how you go through the different actions that players can do and how you roll the dice. And there are cool masks that you will find that will give you special abilities. There are wisdom cards, which will essentially introduce new rules to the game. There are really cool items that you can find. There are flaw cards, which are negative cards you stick in your deck. There are all kinds of special tiles. There's a Thorn Knight, which is like an extra thing thrown in the game that you can play with. So there is a lot, and there's a little index here that helps you find all of it. So there's a ton of components for this game. So what you'll do is you will have all the cards here, and they're all numbered. So you can see these. This doesn't spoil anything, but this is for Dream 3. So if you're playing Dream 3, it will tell you to pull out all the cards for Dream 3, and then you have them all set aside. You have A through J, and you'll use those. And then here's Dream 5. You'll notice some of the numbers are missing because I've gone through those dreams. And this dream is going to add a new rule, possibly, whatever that might do. Then over here are all the tiles for the different dreams. So for Dream 3, these are the different tiles that will be used in that particular dream, and there's a lot of these. Then there's cards that don't have anything to do with the dreams. They're back in here, but everything is listed in number, and so whenever you need a card, the game might say, find, card 234, well, here it is, and I have them all in very specific order. The game also comes with a bunch of dividers, which will allow you to separate them between games. Now, the miniatures themselves in this game are amazing. I'm not going to harp on these too much, but I do want to say that the miniatures for this game, I found that I used more than I thought I would. Yes, they're placeholders for you moving around the map. Yes, if you're playing without the extra miniatures, there's a whole box of extra miniatures you get. You'll have to use generic miniatures for the different entities. Like you might end up using this penguin to represent a ghost or something if you want to. But if you buy the extra set, there's almost a specific model for every bad guy that you come across. But your characters themselves, like this is my favorite character, the Gambler. It's a really cool model. You can see her, all the cards coming off, and all these have this wash on them, or it's called Sun Drop, which I think looks really good. I don't even feel the need to get these painted. Normally I want to get all my miniatures painted, but these look fantastic. The game also comes with a plastic sheet. So here you can see a plastic sheet. This has all my wisdom cards in so that as I learn different rules of the game. So here, for example, this tells me what you do on the Dream World map, a rule. And there are different rules that you'll get as time goes by, and you put them in here to keep track of them. There's also other sheets that come with the game where you can keep, your maps together and different things from game to game. The components here are really top-notch, but there is a lot of them. There's a lot for me to talk about here, so we're going to break it down. So first we're going to talk about the rules and the complexity of the game. This game is designed by the same person who did This War of Mine. This War of Mine had a fantastic tutorial that you played through, and then when the tutorial was over, you kind of knew how to play the game. My biggest problem with This War of Mine was when I wanted to know a rule, I had to go back and search through the tutorial to find it. Etherfields does the same thing, but not bad in a sense. It also has a tutorial dream where you'll walk through something and the Book of Secrets will say, you're here now. This is how this section works. You're here now. This is how this section works. But when you're done, you can find all that stuff in the rule book. That being said, I would hope that Awakened Realms makes a list of things that says, don't forget to do these. I had some back and forth with the folks from Awakened Realms. I said, I'm confused about this, I'm confused about that. And everything that I was confused about was in the rule book or on a rules card. So it wasn't that it wasn't there, but there were things I just missed. This is an overwhelming game to some degree, and you're going to have to play it for a while to get an understanding of how it works, to understand how slumbers work, to understand how slumbers are even important. They are important. There's a lot of different things you can do. How to make dreams easier, how to maximize your time. There's just a lot going on between those. So there is a good chunk of rules, although at this point in time, if you were to sit at my table, I think I could easily teach you the game and run through it with you. But, that first experience. But I am glad there is that walkthrough tutorial that helped a lot. I am completely pleased with the amount of content in this game, and I'll say this. If you have some sort of reoccurring nightmare, there's a good chance it's in this game. I haven't got to the one where you are naked in school yet, but there's one dream that took place in a basement. There's one dream that took place, some of the dreams look all light and fluffy too on the outside, but they're not necessarily. It is a little grim dark, as you can see from the miniatures. There's a little bit of that nastiness in the background, but the game itself is really bright and colorful, and there's all kinds of interesting things. The story feels incredibly disjointed because you're jumping from dream to dream to dream to dream, and the dreams don't make sense, as dreams don't. I know that in my own dreams, I'll wake up and I'll think, why didn't I question the fact that I was going to college in my house, but that house was half in Korea and half in Florida? It doesn't make any sense, but in the dream it does, and the same thing is happening here. Now, that being said, comparing to Tainted Grail last year, I love Tainted Grail's story. I thought it was amazingly written. I do feel like Etherfields is a step down. It's not bad writing, but it's also not great writing. It's fine. It's an interesting story, but I don't know that the prose is exceptionally well written. At the same time, I don't even know what I'm reading half the time. Like, what does that mean? What happened here? But as time goes by, I'm starting to feel, at least where I'm at, I think I've gone through 8 dreams at this point in time and countless slumbers. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see the very edges of this main storyline that this game is taking place in. Why are we even jumping from dream to dream? What's going on? Who am I? That's part of the storyline here. So that kind of fascinates me. But what I think fascinates me the most is the actual gameplay itself. I really like the gameplay of the decks. First of all, the 4 characters in this game have a very distinctive feel to them. I have been playing mostly as the gambler. I like the fact that gambler can easily re-roll the dice. In fact, using the die is something I wasn't doing at the beginning because I was, as much as I joke about pushing my luck in games, when it comes to these big games, I'm kind of have a very hesitancy to do that because I don't want to die and I don't want bad things happen to me. But as I'm playing the gambler, I'm finding that rolling the dice and pushing my luck more and more, this character is actually really built to do that. And as the game goes by, I get to buy some extra cards for my deck. I get to build these cards underneath, and this game kind of flows from one thing to the next. And that game, that deck which you have, is so important to know. Do I fight or do I run? Because sometimes you need to do both. It's not a game about fighting as much as it is about exploring. And but that there is a lot of each, and that cycling through your deck and using the cards and deciding when to seal a card because it's a better time to use that card or just to use them this way. I think it comes together really well, and for me, that's my favorite part of the game. I do like the different dreams and the background theming of them, even if they are spooky for sure. There's the spookiness that emanates through here, but I don't mind that. Like I said, I played it multiplayer and I played it solo. Solo is easier for me to do, and it's going to be easier for a lot of people. The game has rules. We're right now in the middle of my solo campaign that I'm going through. I started as multiplayer, and then I played solo for a while. You could jump in. We could go to the next dream, and if you were here with me, you could grab some of the other dreamers that I've been using, and you could jump in, and we could play together. And I kind of like that, but it is a campaign game. It is a game that I would prefer to leave sit up on the table, and at home I'd say to my wife, "You don't need this table tomorrow?" And she said, "Yes, I need it." I'm like, "Oh, okay, fine." So then I pack up the game, and it's out. I mean, it has a way to pack it up. It's just that it's easier to leave out, and it's one of those games that is campaign. This isn't a game where you just play 2 hours and go. This is a game that you're going to want to play over and over and over again. It is hard. They told me it's not that hard. Okay, fine. I'm just dumb then. I found it to be hard, but I've only died once so far, but I've come this close so many other times, and I feel like I might be behind a curve, but maybe, again, that's just the game pushing me in that direction. The Book of Secrets and stuff, and there's another thing I really like about this game, and this could be positive or negative for you. The game has a bit of an escape room thing to it. There is hidden clues on the tiles, and in fact, there's a mechanism in the game where you're actively looking for things on these tiles. Now, if you have bad eyesight, that may be a problem. If you don't like looking for the little numbers and unlock, that could be a thing in this game. But there's also times where you'll be confronted with a decision, and you're like, well, what do I choose? But the game has given you clues. There's things where you're rotating tiles or trying to figure the solution to something. And as far as I can tell, for some of the puzzles, it seems like there's multiple solutions. There are a few red herrings. Can't say I'm always the biggest fan of going down a thing and then finding that I kind of just wasted my time and be like, fine, and then go back out of it. But the stories are interesting. There's definitely surprises, the way the cards lay on top of each other. And each of the dreams I've been through has been distinctively different than the last. Some have been a puzzle. Some have been sheer. There was one that it was sheer terror as you just ran because someone was chasing you, and that was scary as all get out. One was stay out of the darkness and in the light. Another one, there was spiders. Again, there's all this creepy crawly stuff in here. So I really wanted to play through this a lot, and I have not finished it. If I finished it, you would be seeing this review in years. But I think I played enough to give it a solid review. And while there are a few warts, I think the game could have been streamlined in a few spots, and there's going to take a paradigm shift in your head to understand this slumber, sleep. Slumber, dream, and moving around in the map. And also, there will be spots where you'll feel restricted, but you're not. You just have to kind of learn the system. I feel like I'm a better player, Etherfields, than I was when I started. I know how to use my cards. I know my deck. So there's a bit of that. There's a fairly steep learning curve to jump into this game. But once you do that, it is something that draws me back to play again and again and again. And I'm very interested to see this through to its conclusion. I don't know when that will be because I have so many other games that I'm playing and such. But I am going to pack this up and drag it back to my house and go through it again and continue to go through these different dreams because there's some secret decks in here that I haven't opened that I'm curious to see. I haven't even discovered all the rule cards. I want to see what the end of the story is. I just found something pretty cool that I assume has something to do with the story. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. You are not going to feel like you haven't got your money's worth from here. And they've proven this with Tainted Grail, which they put out last year. And maybe later on I'll do a video comparing them. This is not Tainted Grail Part 2. They both have big storylines and cooperative play, but the gameplays themselves are very different. The time mechanism in here is fascinating. The building your deck is fascinating. There are so many different things that can happen. And it is just a game, I think, that is a deep, juicy steak that is a little bit to get into, for sure. But once you get into it, I feel that it's given me one of the best gaming experiences of this year. So that's Etherfields. And I feel, that's what I think of it. And I feel like I've just scratched the surface of what's going on in this game. And I'm excited to learn more. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment. Excellent.